Happy Thursday from Jacksonville. We're live a little bit late as logistically we're working on some stories, wrapping up day 2 in Jacksonville as Florida State completes one day at the Jaguars complex, one day at the University of North Florida complex. Thanks for watching on the Osceola's YouTube channel. Thanks for Marriott for the delayed checkout for Jerry Cutts and myself, Bob Ferranti. Okay, first things first, we couldn't have had two different practices, Jerry. One inside professional field, Jacksonville Jaguars, turf, covered, cooler. Today, hot outside, soccer intramural field, steamy, humid, tough day. But I think the commonality here is two really good practices, two really good competitive practices for Florida State.
Yeah, and Mike Norvell made a really good point about that yesterday's practice had to be moved because of Hurricane Debbie into the indoor practice facility, and it gave his staff an opportunity to adjust on the fly, which you have to do during a season. And again today, he got what he wished for, which was a super hot, high humidity day that was very uncomfortable for the players. I mean, I thought they kept their energy throughout the practice, but there were several of the players that, towards the end of the practice were really struggling with the heat.
Tough day. It challenges, I think, everybody when you're out there. It is a smaller looking practice. It's only one field, so you don't have the extra space to operate, where in Tallahassee you've got two. You've got an indoor and an outdoor. So both days, Florida State's having to make accommodations to have 85 scholarship guys, plus the walk-ons, plus the staff. Everybody's moving around in a really tight spot, both at the Jaguars facility and at North Florida. One guy we haven't talked about a ton, but in this last week, Brian Courtney, I think, is really emerging as somebody who's more than just a special teams type of guy. Brian had a couple of nice catches today, showing his athleticism in various situations. At one point, Mike Norvell, seeing Brian Courtney go up, elevate for a ball, and Mike Norvell immediately praises him, says, "I'm looking forward to coaching you this year. You keep getting better." I think that's the kind of positive reinforcement that Norvell dishes out. At the same time, he is quick to criticize. But we've seen a lot from Brian Courtney in these last, let's say, week or week plus, Jerry, where he can really fit in and help this team this fall.
Yeah, depth, and he may compete for, playing time with, because they like to use 2 and 3 tight ends in certain packages. So I don't see Brian Courtney as a backup or a depth piece. I think he's a situational player that will see the field throughout the year. But he has been. You can see Mike light up when the member of the media asked about him. He got very animated and talked about his grit and his toughness, and especially focused on his athleticism. He was a quarterback in high school, came here, they made a tight end of him, then moved him to linebacker, and he showed his toughness over there, but they wound up moving him back to tight end, where I think they thought he could help them. And so he's a versatile athlete that obviously is very smart and tough.
Yeah, one more offensive guy I think we want to touch on, because it was a good day for some of the Jacksonville guys. I thought Sam Singleton, the way he ran, the way he blocked in pass protection or just run blocking, honestly, as a lead back. Again, Sam looks like he belongs after a year one where you weren't sure how it was going to look for him because he didn't look comfortable. He has definitely looked comfortable this camp. Again, the rich get richer at running back, but Jerry, your thoughts on Sam?
Yeah, well, he's stacking performances day after day. I mean, he's legit. I mean, I think early on going into camp, he wasn't the first person we named when we talked about a deep running back room. In fact, we probably have even written times where we didn't include him in the story. But he has emerged as a guy to be reckoned with. for sure.
Yeah, we're going to go through. This is going to be a shorter edition of Seminole Sidelines. We're going to try and hit the road soon to get back to Tallahassee. We'll move to defense. I think one of the bigger news items that came out today was when we asked about Marvin Jones Jr. and his offseason, how he's progressed, what Mike Norvell sees in him, and Norvell was very candid. Marvin Jones rolled his ankle just before the start of preseason camp, so Marvin was a little bit limited there. I know a lot of people have been asking. He wasn't in photos. He wasn't in videos. What was going on? So there is a good explanation of Marvin was limited, but we could see it, Jerry. I think it's one of the nice things about being able to see practices day after day. You could see Marvin was working hard. You could see he was working on the side. You could see he was getting back, and then a little bit more and more. I think Friday of last week he was doing the board drill with Odell. It was getting closer and closer. You've remarked what Marvin can bring to this team,
Yeah.
but what have you seen maybe this last, say, week or so from Marvin?
He makes an impact. I mean, he first of all, he's he'd be the first guy coming off the bus, either he or Daryl Jackson. They're just so impressive physically, and he's got a great first step. He's a relentless pass rusher, and he can defend the run. So you can't run away from Peyton without running into Marvin Jones. And I think it gives Florida State's defensive front balance. I don't think an offense can cheat them because they got to deal with both of them.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this a good bit too as we watch practices among the staff. We say, well, okay, go ahead and double team Daryl Jackson. Go ahead and double team Pat Payton or chip a running back on Pat. But then you're going to leave Josh Farmer one-on-one. You're going to leave Marvin one-on-one. Sione, Tomiwa. It comes at you in waves. It's those waves.
And Lyons and Sampson today really flashed. And they've been doing that. I mean, Sampson's, I think Pat's been talking about him since camp opened. And there is some depth on this defensive line that we hope to see and we're seeing.
Another guy that we haven't talked a ton about in camp, but flashed today with a couple pass breakups, Edwin Joseph. He had one where he elevated, and I thought as a high school wide receiver / DB, he might have come down with a phenomenal DB interception. Just couldn't haul it in. Had another pass breakup too. Edwin's not the first name you think of in that DB room because there's so much veteran experience talent. But Edwin might be in that group of the next guys, those kind of year twos that we'll see what they can do this fall. It might be 2025, but Edwin is a guy who's kind of right there. Jerry, to that
and
point.
Speaks to the depth of this secondary.
What have you seen either from, I'm thinking about Edwin, thinking about KJ Kirkland, another Jacksonville guy who stood out, those younger DBs.
Rawls. I didn't notice Rawls today. He didn't catch my eye today, but he's done it in just about every practice. He's a good prospect. Kai Bates is another one that's flashed today. Barker had a pass deflection on the sidelines that was impressive. Broke on the ball, made a nice play. There's a lot of depth in that secondary. And it's a Hussey, our boy Shy is just super active. Today, Little had a nice pass breakup that I think I noted to you while we were watching it. And there's a lot of talent there. And I think that makes it awfully hard on the quarterbacks and the receivers to get momentum going. And sometimes I think that's part of sports is you get a little bit of momentum and, you start to have confidence in yourself and good things happen. But this defensive secondary doesn't let the receiving core get much momentum. And, I think we're somewhat critical of the passing game. I am. I want it to be better than it is, but I'm happy that it's not, because I'd rather have a good defense right now than I had if we were throwing touchdown passes left and right at practice. I'd be very concerned about the future of the one-loss record. But no, it's good. And I got to ask Ron Dugans a question. Somebody asked him about consistency, because they haven't had it. And Dugans answered the question straight up about it's a consistency of finishing the play, and sometimes you got a guy on you and he's slapping at the ball, but you've got to come down with it. You have to finish the play with the ball, and as Dugan said, in our hands. And they're not doing that consistently. There's some contested drops that I know they're frustrating for the offensive coaches, but they make the defensive coaches very happy. And but you want to win at least 50% of those. And then he said that the consistency also goes to finishing the block downfield, because that receiver block downfield is what springs the big touchdown run. And so they've had some opportunities that they haven't finished, whether it be pass receiving or blocking. So Dugan's addressed that straight up. And it's a work in progress. And after that question, I followed it up by asking about what's it like to go against this defense. And I thought Ron perked up. You can watch the interview for yourself. But he talked about that. Going against this defense is very difficult, and it tries you and it makes you better. And then he brought up something I thought was real interesting, is that after play, and we witness it, you and I have seen it, where after, say, Azariah Thomas and a wide receiver go one-on-one in a practice, you'll see them talking to each other. And they're not, harassing each other. What they're doing is AZ can tell the receiver, this is something that you did that gave me a tell on what your route was. Or, hey, great catch. What you're doing, what are you doing that you're getting you open against me, And there's an exchange between the receiver and the defensive back that Mike Norvell has fostered, that Dugan said has spread to he and Patrick Surtain. So they sit down and sort of self-scout on the fly, real time, on things that maybe Dugan's receivers could do better, or that, hey, talk to me about what your route tree is there, because it's given us trouble. And the coaches are learning from each other while the players are as well. That's a healthy competition. So, listen to the Dugan's interview, and I think I've paraphrased him about right. But you can hear it for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's good self-scouting, Jerry. I think that's good to have that relationship among the coaches, and to have another position coach, like a DB coach, talk to a wide receiver, or just for Ron Dugan to say, hey, I'm hearing this from our guys. That's really constructive criticism that I think helps receivers, DBs, everybody on the team alike, as far as just getting better each day. Hey, as we wrap up, of course, we've got a question. Of course, it's our own Patrick Burnham. He wants to ask about the offensive line. I was going to say, Pat, I think your boy Chris Otto looked really, really good, was getting a lot of reps.
Hey, let me interject there. Pat, they did goal line, and it was very, very spirited. I mean, it lasted for a while, and we couldn't tell quite, because the players were all gathered around, like cheering each other on. So it was hard for us to see exactly who was winning, but based upon the response, I think the offense split with the defense, success. But Otto had a rep that I didn't quite see the rep, but everybody was, offensive was going crazy on Otto, and he was all jacked up and he did a cartwheel going back to the huddle that probably was a 10 on a Olympic scale. That kid's an athlete, so they had a lot of fun in that goal line drill. Overall, Pat, I think it's been a lot like all of camp has been, where there's moments of success and some moments where the defense gets them. But today there was, I thought the defense, well, let me back up. They started practice in red zone, and the offense had good success running the ball in the red zone between inside runs, a quarterback sneak, and they scored 2 or 3 times against the first team defense in goal line. And Cam Riley had a great stop against Roydell and a one-on-one tackle right at the goal line, and Roydell stood him up. It was a great tackle. But the offensive line, I thought, did really well in that. And then throughout the course of the day, it was mostly defense dominate the line of scrimmage, I thought. But we saw 4 or 5 runs spit that went, touchdowns probably, or at least 60-yard runs. And so, and that was, a couple of them were against the number 1 defense. So the offensive line had its moments. And the running backs, of course, did. One of them, as Bob mentioned, was Sam. He busted one. Lucas had a big run. And who else, Bob? I had it written down. I think there were 4 of them. And but certainly Lucas, and the ones that stand out to me was Singleton and Lucas.
Lucas's little cutback, I think he started going to the left and then cut back to go up the middle. And then once he cuts and goes, it's almost like one fluid motion. There's really no wasted energy or time there.
Yeah.
I think we can talk about Jalen Lucas almost every day on either First Impressions or Seminole Sidelines. We are running up against it on our clock here to get out of Jacksonville and move back to Tallahassee. Again, Friday will be an off day, Saturday a scrimmage. I want to talk to you about our new subscriber special. You can get the Osceola for 70% off. This is good if you've never subscribed to the Osceola, if you've been on the fence, but want to get a full year of football, recruiting, basketball, Olympic sports. Now is your chance. Go to floridastate.rivals.com. You can sign in. It's going to be under $30 for a full year. That's going to be our very, very best promo offer for you to get on board, to read all of our stories, our observations, Jerry's columns, all the insight from recruiting from guys like Pat, Nick, and Fish. And we'll have that all the way through the fall into the early signing period, the transfer portal window, and on and on. Again, shorter show for you. Seminole Sidelines from Jacksonville. I want to give you a good breakdown of what we saw through 2 practices. Appreciate you watching on the Osceola's YouTube channel. Again, thank you. We'll talk to you soon here. Jerry Cutts. I'm Bob Ferranti. Take care.